I guess I'll get started. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today with Talks on Tuesdays, or at Talks on Tuesdays. And it's a time where we come together and offer a safe space to talk about just various different ideas and thoughts and perspectives on life and death and the supernatural and anything else that kind of uh, pulls our fancy. And I see Cecilia's joining us. So, whoops, and my cat Dusty is up here. So we'll be together for about 30 minutes, and then afterwards we'll be on YouTube. So if you can't join us here, you can always see us on YouTube, or you can go back and rewatch on YouTube. We appreciate that. Leave us some comments and subscribe to our channel, and hopefully you'll like us. So again, welcome and thank you all for being here. And today I thought that we would have a conversation on end of life. And the title that we put on the little flyer, thanks to Mary, hi Cecilia, is Death, Transition, Passing Away. No matter how you phrase it, it'll catch you one day. And it is something that I've been aware of very much of most of my life. When I was very young, I went down to a neighbor's house. It was the first time that I went to her house by myself. We were maybe 4 or 5. She lived on the street, and I went down, and her father had had some sort of medical event. I think he had a stroke, and he was propped up in bed. I still remember this so clearly. He was sitting there in nice clean pajamas and looked all fresh, and his eyes were closed and he looked like he was asleep, but very comfortable. And my friend and I snuck into the bedroom, and she whispered something about the fact that he was going to die soon, or that he was dying. And she was very matter of fact about it. And I just found that so interesting. And I think I kind of carried that perspective with me throughout life. I believe, and I started believing early on, and my experience with reconnective healing really brought this home. It's that we are all eternal beings, and so we continue on after we transition from this physical space. And with my time as a nurse, I was around a lot of people who transitioned for this reason or that. And I find it very awe-inspiring and fascinating. And years ago, my husband and I facilitated a program called Conscious Aging. It was developed by the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and here's part of the workbook. And it was a series of different weeks we'd get together and talk about different topics that most people towards the end of their life would address, although it could be attended to by anybody. It's really ways of living and looking at life. And one of the weeks we talked about conversations on death and dying, and who would you like to have at your bedside? How would you like your death to be? And like a couple of us were mentioning earlier, it's something a lot of us haven't really thought about. So I thought it'd be nice to just open the conversation with that, and let's share and see what we have to say. Gino, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago or so, uh, without a lot of contemplation, it just suddenly came to me that I'm not afraid to so-called die. I'm just not afraid to die. Now, if somebody entered this room with a knife to kill me, yeah, I mean, instincts would say, yeah, oh, I'm afraid, don't kill me. But just under normal circumstances. And what I got from that is that it created a lot more peace. It wasn't like I was walking around every day, "Oh, I got to be careful. I don't want to die." It wasn't like that. It was just something subtle there. Like so many people are afraid to die. A classic case is my mom, who is 93. And I discussed this with her once. She's not really in too much into deep conversations, but she listened and she understood and she appreciated that. But she remains just very fearful of death. And I thought, man, you're 93. Come on, just accept it, let it go, you know? But yeah, just that, I mean, that's one of the greatest revelations I've ever had without ever aspiring to it. It just, there it is. Oh my God, I feel light, it's great. In terms of, who do I want at my bedside and all these different things, no, I haven't thought a great deal about that, but
Mm.
in a way, I don't care, you know? I mean, I'm sorry for the people I'll be leaving behind, and I love them and everything, but um, just to have this whole scenario set up of what will happen, what I want to happen and everything, I don't want to get into that either. Again, that takes away the peace of this transition for me. I just want to transist, and I'm sure that if I have any consciousness, where I can think, I can in some ways review my life, and I feel that I will be very, very pleased with what I did in this lifetime.
Nice. That's very
Yes.
nice.
Yeah.
And of course, there's no guarantees. Any of us can walk out the door and get hit by a car. Who knows? So even the thoughts of, oh, who do I want by my bedside? But sometimes, that just the contemplation brings people to a certain amount of peace. But it sounds like you found that,
Yeah.
and that's terrific. And,
Thank you.
yeah, Cecilia.
Hey y'all, good to hear, good to see you. Okay, I know I've shared this story in the RLC and I've shared it in a couple other areas, but I know we never die. I know we're eternal. And I had been at this one training program to find the warrior in each of us. And in this, we were there for a week, and every day we had 2 or 3 times exercises that we would participate in where we could die. And it was really to find the strength within. And during one of these exercises, I went. I dropped to the ground and I went. And I had at that time had found and been studying with the Self-Realization Fellowship, and I had found Mahavatar Babaji, and I had been connected and been meditating with him for years. And when I went down and went into his cave, his space, he just looked at me, and without words, with the thought more than anything, he said, "You're eternal. Why are you pretending you can die?" I thought, oh, and all of a sudden I was back in the room, back at the training program, and they were, patting my hand and saying, "You're here at the program, you're here at the program." And I opened my eyes and said, "I am eternal. I can never die." And I got up and I participated in the exercise that we were doing, because it was, you have to do this for so long, and nobody could take me down. I never went down again after that. It was just so profound, because after that, I just kept yelling at people, "I love you, I love you." And I don't know where that came from, but when I went to, "I am eternal, I could never die, I love you," once that shift happened, nobody could take me down. I was invincible. I just was, I was so powerful, and I was beaming. And as the rotations kept going, and I was, participating in trying to make somebody else go down, she went down over and over and over and over. And the guy that was, he was trying to help her stay on her feet, but she kept dropping. And he just whispered in her ear, he says, "Tell her you love her." Because that's the secret. Love is the secret. And it was beautiful and powerful. And it's so funny. I'm going to share one other story. Years before that, I had been babysitting for these 2 little girls, and one of them was at school, and one of them was much younger. She's probably 4 years old or whatever. And we found these bicycles, and so we were riding this path, and she was in front of me. There was no cars, because it was a dirt road kind of path, but she was in front of me and I was behind her, and I kept on looking to make sure that nothing was behind me, nothing was coming up. And all of a sudden she stopped, and I could not stop in time. So I flipped over top of her and went down. And I thought, while I'm in there, I'm thinking, this is gonna hurt. And I went down and boom, I hit my head. And it was like a cartoon because I sat up and I touched the back of my head and I felt it growing. And I felt myself getting this, you know, the skin on my face was just pulled back because of this bump on my head. And I looked at the little girl. I said, okay, we're going to get going. We're going to go home and we're going to have some lunch for you. And what's your mommy's phone number? What's your daddy's phone number? what's the emergency number? 911. Okay. I was quizzing her and testing her in case I fainted or something. And we got her home, got her sat in front of the TV, and I kept on quizzing her on what's your mommy's number. and I just sat there and I put some ice on it and I was sitting next to her with my hand on my head, and it never hurt. It just grew and eventually went down, but it never felt pain. I never felt throbbing. I never felt anything. And I was sitting there going, what if I just died just now? And I just shifted into another place.
Dimension.
What if I just shifted into another plane of existence? What if I just died right now? And I thought, there's no such thing as death. I knew then, because I thought, I could have died. I could be in a whole nother physical body right now. I thought, that wasn't so bad. And so then I was told later, why are you pretending you can die? You are eternal. So there you go. That's my story.
Good story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mary.
But we hear all of these stories of near death, temporary death, out of body experiences. And what's so heartening from the first time I ever heard them is no one is ever alone at death. So it doesn't really matter who's with you in body. There's always going to be those spirits that have always been with you who you can finally say, oh, I know you. There you are. I must be dead. And, I'm actually kind of excited about it. Not anxious, but it's the next big adventure.
Yeah, totally. Jules.
That's kind of a comforting thought, I also have not thought much about who I would want there. I think that I've always felt that we don't, we die in the sense that the word in the vocabulary, right? And I think that I pretty much have come to the belief that we go on and in spirit form or reincarnate or whatever. And I think, I'm okay with that. I'm good, every now and then, if I really think about, I can't even imagine dying, period. But, hi. And I get a little twinge, kind of. I can't even explain it. I don't know if it's fear or what, but I feel I would hope that when that time comes that I'm not in a lot of pain. I think about that, but that we're not alone ever, like Mary, like you just said. I really like that, that we're going to be cocooned, kind of, with love. Yeah.
That does happen. That does happen, that people who are getting ready to do their transition. And yes, Cecilia, we are all eternal, and that's kind of what happens when these beings come to kind of meet us. But these physical parts of us, do kind of disappear. And I think that's the hardest thing for the survivors, is they forget that the essence is still around. But yeah, I've seen people who reach up just as they're, taking their last breath, or talk about so-and-so's here, or it's, and I used to think, I don't want anyone to die alone, but just what you were saying, Mary, they're really not. Although I think that to me, that was really kind of an important thing, to not let anybody die alone. Because not everybody is comfortable with being left, and I had a really unusual thing happen to me once when I was working in ICU. I had a patient who was DNR, or do not resuscitate, and normally those people aren't even in the unit, but he had been transferred in earlier that day, I think, because he had a medical event, and they stabilized him, but realized he was dying, and so they let him stay in the unit until either we needed the bed or until he made his transition. It was unusual we had a spare beds, but we did at this time. He was comfortable. He was nonverbal, but he was alert and comfortable. And he started sleeping a lot. And then I got another admission, a patient who was super unstable in the room next door. And I had two other nurses with me, and we were trying to keep him alive so that we can send him down to the catheter lab. And the catheter is a tube where they put up through your vein and into your heart so they can see what's going on. And I worked nights, and so they had to have the cath tech come in on call and set the lab up and stuff. So our orders were keep this guy alive until the cath tech gets there. And it was really hard. And we were really kind of frantically working on him. And suddenly my other guy next door, who had been fairly comfortable, started putting his call light on like over and over and over. And I didn't know if it was because he was going to die and wanted to, he was feeling anxious and he wanted someone to be with him, or because he was picking up on that nervous energy that was going on next door, because we were really trying to keep this guy going. And I'd run over and he'd want something that was rather frivolous, and he's nonverbal, so he had to kind of gesture. And one time he wanted some water, and one time he wanted his blanket fluffed or something, and one time he wanted his table moved a little closer. And I was so worried that he was going to die, and I didn't want him to be alone, but I also couldn't keep taking time to run over there when I had somebody else very unstable. And so I just kind of blurted out to him after like the third or fourth call, "Are you going to die tonight?" And he looked at me and his eyes got really big, and then he kind of looked up, and I can tell he was considering it, and he shook his head no. And so I explained to him, "I've got this really unstable patient next door. How about if I come over and check on you every 30 minutes? And, if there's anything that's needed, I'll do it then. And if you have increased pain or hard time breathing, call me right away. But anything else, is it okay if we wait, And he said, yeah. I mean, he nodded. So I went back. And then I came back 30 minutes later, and he was totally asleep, fast asleep. He slept the rest of his night. His vitals were totally stable. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I mean, how could I have done that? And how did he even know? But there it was. And it was just so fascinating to me. So
That's a fascinating story. I love that.
yeah.
Wow. That you blurted that out with the guy, are you going to die tonight?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was so funny. I mean, he's like, what? And then he started looking up like,
Unknown caller.
Yeah, he knew. So go ahead, Gina.
Another thing that a lot of people consider is what happens in the so-called afterlife.
Yeah.
When I say die, I'm talking about just leaving my body. And, because I am not my body, it's just some material stuff going on here. And of course, I was raised Catholic, much like you, Mary, I remember. And of course, the whole dogma is, you don't want to have too many sins on your plate, or you don't get into heaven. Or if you just got a few, you're going to go to purgatory. Or if you're really awful, you're going to go to hell. Those are your three choices. And so anyway, that's just one example, but there's a lot of different faiths and beliefs and everything. And in my time, I've been able to say, well, there are certain things I absolutely know are not true. They just sound so ridiculous, they can't be true. Like waiting at the pearly gates for God to say, well, okay, you can come in, So, and then of course, then reincarnation comes up, and, I've had past life regression. I've done a lot of different things, but nothing has really rooted in me to say, this is what will happen. And I think when I was going through all those things, I was looking for assurance and peace and know what to do. And I don't. After all this time, I don't know. And I was thinking, well, science says that energy cannot be destroyed, and I'm energy. So at minimum, I could be just out in space as energy floating around, not in a body, of course. So that also kind of created peace for me too. Why do I need to know? Why? Just whatever happens, happens. Let's see, I did put an order in though. I says, well, if I'm going to be reincarnated, make me this super handsome, muscular man with tons of money and popularity. I put it all in there. That's what I
That's
want.
funny.
So just in case the order is in.
Yeah, why not? Never hurts to ask, right?
Louis, I saw your hand raise.
Yesterday, being so terrible flooding here, I couldn't do anything. So I scrolled down on my Facebook page and everything. But I came to a very interesting story of a lady as Dolores. And she were talking about one of her, well, how can I say, patients that she put under hypnotherapy. And she asked her, what were you in your previous life? Because the lady got a lot of trouble. And she said, no, she was working with, but what is this guy with all these, all this, everything is in quadrants and everything. And she said, he wants to talk to you. And there she realized that it is nobody is dying. It is as if you are on a different level of life. And then she started talking. He said, you people are all interpret my predictions completely wrong. And he started quoting to her of everything, what it should be and what it should not be. And it is absolutely amazing. And she said in the end, she had to make use of a computer to help her with everything. And there is free books, but he personally had explained to her and talked to her. And he said, you can talk to me anytime. But she said, yeah, but this lady is moving away to Alaska. He said, no, it is, when you need me, it is like a telephone call. Any one of your patients, you can just call me and I will talk through them to you. So I still wanted to go back to that because as we all said and heard, life is energy. And, but you walk, we say we pass over and we die. I also have here a lovely book that is very much onto that. That is talking about that you are actually stepping over from the one life into the next. If you people can see this, the Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East by Breit T. Spalding. Now, I think
Yes.
it's in the number 4 book, but that Jesus are talking to them and explain to them how they don't have to be afraid. Death is like one step just into the next life. So that got me tremendously thinking, but we're in a hologram, but we're not really passing away, but we are living on different levels and things like that. So I'm very confused after yesterday.
I think being confused is okay. Kind of like what Gina was saying. He doesn't know, but he feels okay with it. And that's,
Yeah. The fact that she said no, it was to me an absolutely thing to reconsider the whole concept of you are actually living now on a different plane and things as you are on a different spiritual level or something like that,
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I want to listen and listen again, and I want to reread that book again. So I just shared it with your people.
Well, thanks. Yeah,
Will you
that's so
put the title
interesting.
in the chat?
Yeah.
Will you put the title of the book in the chat?
Yes, I
Yeah.
would suggest if you do read that, it is a tremendous, fantastic range of books that help you to find your own inner core and to see things completely different in different dimensions, and how easy it is for us actually to step over into that, where we are so bound, earthbound, and everything. It starts also there, but everything actually what you want, you can create.
Beatrice, we're running out of time now. So if you could type the, oh, Gino, do you have that book also?
Oh, my God.
I can't see it.
Gino,
but
put it
could
right
you
in
type
front of your
the-
chest.
type
Put it in
the-
front of your.
I'll type it in right now.
Okay,
Thank
yeah,
you.
because we've only got a couple more
I'm
minutes.
not-
Anka, did you want to say something quickly?
Yes, I want to live as long as possible, and the last moments I hope will be in pure love for God and universe. I think I have less than half of my life to live. It will be hard, but also beautiful. I want to change many things in this world, and I prefer to die when I am 52, 53 years old. I hope that God will save me from death in that moment when I need it. And about the transition, although I think it is done quickly in the Orthodox, it takes 40 days. I haven't thought about how I want the last days to be, but I hope to be satisfied for the work I have done on earth. I want to evolve a lot in this life and believe in God so I can become a very spiritual being. So that God will be proud and say about me what a wonderful woman, exactly as I assumed she would be. I will hope that the end of my life will not be too soon. In conclusion, I don't want to be afraid of death and appreciate life exactly as it is and for what it has to offer.
Wow,
Thank you.
did you write that?
Yes,
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Wonderful.
It was great. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to
Pleasure.
say you might get the surprise that you live longer.
I
Yeah,
know.
52
That's
or
what I was
53.
thinking.
It's not that
That's
young.
young.
Much
Yeah.
younger.
Yeah.
Much
Yeah.
longer.
And that could be a whole nother conversation, but unfortunately, I think we're just about out of time today. So thanks everybody for joining us. And
Thank you.
That
Gino,
went
thank
fast.
you.
yeah,
with
Okay,
pleasure.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
and thanks
Bye.
Gino for putting that in the chat. Does everybody see it?
Got
You
it.
bet.
Okay, take care. Bye bye. Thanks everyone. We'll see you
Bye.
next week.
Bye.